1 out of 4 U.S. workers who have been out of the workforce will begin losing their enhanced unemployment, some as soon as this weekend. 25 states, all with Republican-led governments, are cutting the benefit before it is set to expire. Weekly jobless claims have steadily declined over the past 6 weeks, but leaders of those states say not enough people have returned to work. Joining us now is Patricia Cohen from the New York Times. She's a national economy correspondent. Patty, welcome. Great to have you with us. So the federal government is paying for this enhanced unemployment, not the states. So what is the state's justification for cutting the benefits early? And is there any validity to the claim that people are making more on unemployment than they would if they went back to their jobs?
Oh, thanks for having me. So basically, the argument is that people are not going back and looking for jobs because that they're getting these extra unemployment benefits. So even though the state's not paying for them at all, they're getting a lot of pressure from the business community saying that, look, we have these job ads and no one's responding to them, or many fewer people than we would expect. The thing is, we don't exactly know why that's happening. So there's a few reasons. For one, we know that childcare is still a problem for a lot of parents, and that's particularly women workers. A lot of schools are not completely open yet. Daycare is not completely open as it was before the pandemic. So that is a real problem. Also, remember, it's less than, I think, 50% of the population is fully vaccinated and had both vaccines. And so there are health concerns among a lot of workers about returning to face-to-face work environments. So we're kind of creating this grand experiment that we're going to see over the next couple of months as to whether the states where job benefits are being cut off, in fact, have a quicker return to work than in the states where they're not.
Right. It's so complicated. All of those reasons that you mentioned. I mean, I know for a fact that especially for a lot of women, childcare, and we're going into the summer now, right, Patty? I mean, it was one thing even when the kids were in remote school and they were still at home, but now school is out altogether. And so that really will keep a lot of women especially, but some fathers for sure, out of the workforce. President Biden has maintained his jobs plan benefits are needed for the recovery, and Republicans say the job market is already there. Do you think this has, become a little bit more about politics than the reality of the economic situation on the ground?
Oh, well, it's definitely about politics, and that's very clear if you look at, all of the 25 states are all led by Republican governors. And so this has definitely become part of a political debate as much as it is about the actual economic question. And we don't know exactly the reasons that people are not flocking back to the workforce as fast as one might have anticipated. And part of it is just the ramping up effect. It's one thing to close down the economy. It's another thing to turn it back on. It doesn't turn on just like a light switch. And that there is still a lot of, think about a game of musical chairs. Some of people are looking for new jobs. It's not as if their existing jobs are there that they necessarily can go back to. And there are 7.3 million fewer jobs now than existed before the pandemic.
Right. And of course, the other piece of it is that what kinds of jobs are these? In terms of maybe employers need to add some more incentives, higher wages, something to attract the workers that they want back to these jobs. So, Patty, in addition to the job recovery, Americans are now starting to see higher prices, which again is another complicated, the reasons behind this are also complicated. But how is the job market tied to this inflation that we're starting to see?
Well, the thing about the inflation, it's a lot of disagreement in terms of exactly what's causing that, and also whether that's a shift that we're going to see continue into the next year or two, or whether this is kind of a temporary hike in prices that has to do as much with, again, getting the economy back to ramping up, supply chain shortages, and again, some pressure in terms of raising wages to some degree to attract workers to come back to the workforce. And a lot of the areas of the economy that are having the most trouble attracting workers back are those that don't pay that well, in the service industry, and are either close to the minimum wage or trying to pick it up a little bit. So there is pressure in the sense of wage of prices going up in order to pay more for wages, and a little inflation is okay. It was high last month, but there's several economists think that is not something that's going to last at the same rate that it is now. That there's a kind of temporary adjustment issue.
From the New York Times, thank you so much for joining us and discussing all of these various, elements and forces that are going into the economy and the economic scenario, the unemployment scenario we're seeing right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.